4 years ago, we bought a piece of land on the south coast of New South Wales with no road, no power, no water, nothing. Even though we're over halfway through and 3.5 million over budget, we still don't know if we're going to make it to the end. Having access to water is obviously a super important part for a luxury retreat. But how do you get it to a location on a rural property that has no existing services? In this episode, we're going to break down how we're supplying Agape's future guests with enough water and what you should think about for your own project. So we're standing here outside with the water tanks. We got asked to make a video about how this has all been done because we're completely off grid, so we have no access to town water. So there were quite a few things that went into planning this. We did work with an engineer to figure out our actual usage. So they kind of work out how many people you have, how many bathrooms, and then how much each person uses each day. And then they kind of work out from that how much storage capacity you need. Ours was actually quite a bit smaller than this when it was originally spec'd. But we decided to up-spec it just because I never want to be in the situation where we don't have water. It's just very frustrating. Obviously, you can bring it in, but you don't want to rely on it if you are off-grid, right? So you can also have additional water to do anything like watering the garden, but all those kind of things. But if you are doing irrigation, you do need to be careful because it chews through the water. So add another tank or go even bigger. In the end of the day, they kind of just get a little bit wider, so you can get a lot of capacity in here. But this tank is 162,000 liters. And what you can see here is we opted for the gauge, which I highly recommend and actually shows you where we are. So we're sitting at about just under 50% capacity. So it's just being filled over time. And something to note with the rainwater tanks is also where you're catching the water. So you want to have as much area as possible. So we're catching off this little shed, the house, as well as the big 200 square meter shed, and that's all feeding here. Now, one gotcha with that is that it's very expensive to obviously run that pipe or dig it in. So I would advise keeping your tanks close to your buildings, as close as you can. And especially if you have like a big shed or something, try keep it near the tank. That will save you a lot of money. So make sure you're doing that. But yes, once that's all up and running, then move on to our pumps and filters. So with the pumps and the filters, what we've got here on these tanks is a system that is a dual pump system. So it'll work between two pumps and they'll constantly take turns. And that way you don't end up burning out one pump, one sits idle, and then after time you go and try and use your second pump and it hasn't been worked for a couple of years and just doesn't tease us up. So this way you're spreading the load. On top of that, we also have filtration systems because, even though it's rainwater, the roof and stuff will collect, birds can leave sediment on top of the roof and that you then goes into your drinking water, and there are certain bacteria that can grow, so it's always best to filter the water as well. We're running filters outside, but then we're also got for drinking water, we're using reverse osmosis. Yes, it's overkill, but there is a plastic lining inside the tank, and obviously we're trying to avoid microplastics. It could be overkill, you could not be into it, but we are, so we've got filtration systems to filter those out. And then even if you do import town water, which you usually do the first 10%, filtering fluoride, filtering any chemicals that you want to get out. We do that for drinking water alone. And then another really important thing to do is actually, and this is what the plumbers recommended, was running an unfiltered line. So this is a line that comes straight off your pump. It doesn't go through a filter, so you're not drinking it or you're not showering it and all that kind of stuff, but it's used for watering the garden. So you're not losing the pressure through there, and you can have maximum pressure. It's actually quite an important piece to do, and think about it beforehand. We didn't think about that beforehand, so we had to add extra work later on, which again adds up. It's a variation you don't want to do. I will do is show you the primary dwelling tank as well. All right, so we are standing outside the primary dwelling tank here, and this tank is quite a lot bigger. This is at 275,000 liters. So it is feeding primarily off the main house here. So we don't have any sheds or stuff that are feeding this one. So all the downpipes feed in, and it's got some monster pipes because it's going to take a lot of water. And we have a lot of roof here. So the building itself is 1,000 square meters. So your roof's going to be more than that. I don't know the exact calculation. And then we also have the wellness center that would also feed into here actually. So this tank again has been over-engineered, like a lot of things here, on purpose, so that we don't have to worry about water. But it is a big one, and we've tucked it behind the house so you can't see it as much. Now, another great question is how long these things take to install and manufacture. So from memory, there's a couple of months lead time on actually getting the installation done. And these things are actually relatively simple to install because they actually come as sheets. So it's a whole bunch of sheets that's wrapped, and then it's got a plastic skin inside there, and they come up real quick. I think it was like less than a week to actually install them. So it comes in a small pallet, and then they put these up here. This one unfortunately got punctured when it was installed, so we are waiting for a replacement skin. We just noticed all the water was leaking out, so something to keep an eye out. And then again, we have the water meter installed, and we also put in we opted for I believe it was the vermin. I'm trying to think of what they call it, but it keeps rats and mice out of the water tanks that are going to go and die in there, because you don't want that. You don't want to be drinking that. But it does mean we couldn't get the guttering system on here, which is fine. I think I'd rather prefer to have those animals out. We're up here in the secondary dwelling awning space, basically the raked ceiling here, and we opted to use, purely for budget purposes, a cement sheet up here, and we're just checking it out. It actually looks really nice, and for the cost savings, it's really worth it. It was supposed to be timber or charred cladding, but it's just very expensive to install, especially in this really hard to reach areas where you can just slap a couple of sheets up and away you go. So it's actually looking really nice, and it was actually quite a good cost saving exercise.
So here we can see them working on the secondary office, which is a nice little shed, and us just talking to all the different trades and plumbers, making sure we're on the same page. We usually check in every Tuesday, go there for a site visit, and just make sure things are moving in the right direction. When you actually start building something on site, things can change, and it's important to kind of be on top of those, right? You don't want them to blow out or them to build something that you never wanted in the first place. Here we are checking out the bathrooms in the secondary dwelling. We went for this little mosaic tile, which we were very unsure of before it was grouted, because it looks very different, but now that it has been grouted, it looks awesome. It's the same family as the big large format tile, and you can also see they're busy sheeting the roof, getting it all ready for painting, and the bathrooms came together really quickly actually. So we got screed, waterproofing, tiles. It really starts feeling like a finished product quite quickly. Walking through the primary dwelling, you can see that the structure, the frames all starting to come together. We are starting to put the main pavilion together here, which is one of those pieces that was just waiting for a very long time, and you can see it starts to really finish off the building. Before that, it kind of just looked like a long box, which is very unappealing, but its character's starting to show through now. There's the big center fireplace that you're going to walk straight into, which is going to be a really cool reveal. Built it in a way so that we can bring it in, because it's a very heavy fireplace, can be built, and then the wall will get built in. And you can see they've had allowances there on the left-hand side. So over here, we were just talking about our outdoor fire pit area, and then also the batters. So the batters are just the hills that come off here, and then the retaining walls, because it's quite steep here. We want to make sure that people can walk. So just talking through with Tyrone how we can actually achieve this. Obviously, we need a lot of dirt from the site that we've got, and then we're just going to shape it around where we've dug out. We're going to be reusing that dirt and shaping it. You can see it all lying there, ready to go, ready to be shaped and formed, and then just obviously greened up. Few problems on a work site always, but Tyrone's been very good at solving them. One of the biggest causes of my anxiety was this battering, all this earthworks around the outside of the house, but we've actually managed to have that looking real tidy, which we'll save for the next video. But until next time, we'll catch you on the next one.